When they say negotiable instrument is an instrument which is freely transferable, or what do they mean by freely transferable?
A negotiable instrument is a document guaranteeing the payment of a specific sum of money that can be transferred freely from one party to another, often by delivery or endorsement. The person who lawfully holds it gains the right to receive the money. In short, it's designed to circulate like cash, making commercial transactions smooth and secure.
When they say by customs of trade, what do they mean?
When we say freely transferable, we mean that the instrument can be passed from one person to another without restrictions. In other
No.
words,
When they
ownership
say
and the right to payment can move from
when
one
they say
party to
by
another,
customs of trade,
often by. If there's anything else you'd like to explore, I'm here.
when they say by customs of trade, what do they mean?
By customs of trade means that the concept of negotiable instruments didn't come out of nowhere. It emerged from the actual practices merchants used over time. In commerce, traders naturally developed the habit of treating these instruments
No, when they
as goods of
mention
exchange,
which is
as
freely
I was saying,
transferable by
passed
customs of trade.
When an instrument is freely transferable by the customs of trade, it means that through long-standing business practices, people in commerce have come to accept that such an instrument can be passed easily from one person to another, often by endorsement or delivery. In other words, the business community widely acknowledges that ownership and the right to payment can shift smoothly, making these instruments function like cash substitutes.
When they say by mere delivery or by an endorsement and delivery, what do they mean?
By mere delivery means that if the instrument is payable to the bearer, simply handing it over from one person to another transfers ownership. On the other hand, by endorsement and delivery applies when the instrument is payable to order. In that case, the current holder must sign, endorse it, and then deliver it. The endorsement is like a signature on the back that directs to whom the instrument should go next. In short, bearer instruments need only delivery, while order instruments require endorsement and delivery.
So delivery means bearer, while endorsement and delivery means.
Exactly. Endorsement means the current holder signs the instrument, usually on the back, signifying that they are transferring it to a specified person, the order. Once endorsed, delivery must follow to complete the transfer of rights to that new person.
But why do they include again delivery? I mean, initially they started like from one person to another by mere delivery or by endorsement and delivery. Why do they mention the term delivery again? Is that part of the endorsement or it is different?
Exactly. Endorsement is the act of signing the instrument, typically writing on the back, which states that the rights to the instrument are being transferred to someone specific. Delivery is the separate physical act of actually handing over the instrument after endorsement. Both are necessary when the instrument is payable to order. In short, endorsement establishes the new recipient, and delivery completes the transfer.
Now, in the definition, why do they mention the delivery word again?
They mention delivery again because even after endorsement, the physical transfer of the instrument is crucial to complete the negotiation. Without delivery, the intended.
Let me
holder would
read
have
the
no
entire
possession.
statement again. The statement is negotiable instrument is an instrument. The word
Of course.
instrument means a
Just go ahead
document
and tell
which
me
is
what's on your
freely
mind,
transferable
and I'm
by
ready to help.
customs of trade from one person to another by mere delivery or by endorsement and delivery. The property in such an instrument passed to bona fide transferee for value.
Yes, that's correct. A negotiable instrument is a document guaranteeing payment that can be transferred freely.
When they say the property in such an instrument passed to bona fide transferee for value, What does it mean by bona fide transferee? What do they mean by bona fide transferee? What do they mean by bona fide transferee?
A bona fide transferee is someone who receives the instrument in good faith, for value, and without any notice of defects or claims against it. In other words, they're an honest party who has given something in exchange and had no reason to suspect anything wrong with the instrument's validity. In that situation, the law protects their right to enforce the instrument.
The Act does not define the term negotiable instrument. However, Section 13 of the Act provides for only three kinds of negotiable instruments, namely bills of exchange, promissory notes, and checks, payable either to order or bearer.
That's right. While the Act doesn't define negotiable instrument broadly, Section 13 recognizes three specific types: promissory notes, bills of exchange, and checks. These can be payable either to order, a specific person, or to bearer, any holder. This legal framework ensures that these instruments can be transferred easily, making them vital tools in commerce.
It is to be noted that hundis, treasury bills, bearers, debentures, railway receipts, delivery orders, bills of ladings are also considered as negotiable instruments, either by mercantile custom or usage.
Exactly. While the Act formally names only promissory notes, bills of exchange, and checks, other instruments have gained negotiable status through long-standing trade practices. Instruments like hundis, treasury bills, bearer debentures, and bills of lading are accepted as negotiable because merchants and commercial custom treat them that way, even if not explicitly defined in the Act.
So, a negotiable instrument is payable to order when it is expressed to be so payable, or when it is expressed to be payable to a specified person and does not contain words prohibiting its transfers, like it is transferable by endorsement and delivery. Explain these two statements.
You stated it precisely. A negotiable instrument is payable to order when it explicitly says so or names a specific person without prohibiting further transfer. In that case, it can only be passed on by endorsement, a signature, plus delivery. In short, the next holder must be specified. A negotiable instrument is payable to order if expressed to be so payable. It means the instrument uses explicit wording like pay to X or order. That indicates the instrument can be transferred further by endorsement. The second part reinforces that even if it's simply made out to a specific person, without restrictive language, it's also considered payable to order. In essence, both conditions ensure that the instrument can be further negotiated, transferred onward through endorsement and delivery.
Is it the first topic? Is it stating about the bearer check?
No. The first topic you referenced is explaining when an instrument is payable to order. It doesn't relate to bearer. Payable to bearer is a separate concept where the instrument states it's payable to whoever holds it, no endorsement required.
When they say it is
Payable to-
expressed to be so payable, doesn't it mean that it's a bearer check?
No. When it says expressed to be so payable, it means the instrument explicitly states that it's payable to order or to a particular person or order. That indicates that further transfer requires endorsement.
So can you give
Contrast-
example for both the statements?
Certainly. For an instrument payable to order, it might say pay to John Smith or order. This means it can be transferred by John Smith's endorsement and delivery. For a bearer instrument, it might say pay to bearer, meaning whoever holds it can claim the amount, no endorsement needed.
No, when the statement says, as we know, a negotiable instrument is payable to order when there are two statements given in the PDF I uploaded. So could you explain why there are two statements and what does it mean? Could you please give an example to make me understand?
Of course, the PDF gives two conditions to cover both ways an instrument might be payable to order. First, if the instrument literally states pay to order, for example, pay to John Smith or order, it's clearly transferable. Second, if it's payable to a specific person but doesn't forbid transfer, for example, pay to John Smith, it's also considered payable to order. In the second case, even though order isn't explicitly written, it's understood that John Smith can endorse and transfer it unless words like not transferable are used.
How the checks are made differently?
Checks are always payable on demand and drawn on a specific bank. If a check is payable to
No,
order,
I mean-
it will name a
I mean, I understood
Got
that. I understood that a negotiable instrument is an instrument which is freely transferable by customs of trade from one person to another. This much I understood. But when we state that a negotiable instrument is a payable to order when it is expressed to be so payable, in easy English, what does it mean?
In plain English, it means the instrument clearly states that it's payable to order, like saying pay to John Smith or order. In other words, it's explicitly giving permission for John Smith to either receive the money or endorse the instrument so someone else can claim it. Essentially, it's a formal way of saying it can be passed on.
So, can an order check also be passed on?
Yes, absolutely. An order check can be further transferred if the payee endorses. The named payee would sign on the back, the endorsement, and then deliver it to another party. That person would then have the right to either further negotiate it or present it to the bank for payment.
If I give a check to John stating pay to John only, if I direct my bank through the check that I only allowing to pay to John's account only, in that case, can John further give the check to someone else?
No, in that case, John cannot further transfer it. When you specify pay to John only or instruct the bank to restrict payment to John alone, you effectively prohibit further negotiation. That means John is the final recipient and he cannot endorse or pass the check on to someone else.
So I interpreted earlier that stating to pay someone only is the order check, but I think I was wrong. Could you please explain me what is the order check then?
An order check is one that's payable to a specific person or their order. It typically says something like pay to John Smith or order. This means John can either receive the payment himself or endorse the check to someone else. In contrast, a check that says pay to John only or not negotiable limits it so only John can receive the funds, and it cannot be further transferred.
Here, why both the statements are given, it sounds similar to me. A negotiable instrument is payable to order when it is expressed to be so payable. Then the other one is when it is expressed to be payable to as a specified person and does not contain words prohibiting its transfer. So I don't understand why they put two different statements.
They use two statements to capture both scenarios. The first scenario is when the instrument explicitly states pay to order. For example, pay to John Smith or order. This clearly signals the right to transfer. The second scenario is when it's simply made out to a specific person, pay to John Smith, but without any wording restricting transfer. In both cases, it's treated as payable to order. They state both to ensure you understand that explicit wording isn't always required. It's
So
also about the absence
does
of
it mean
restrictions.
that the first one prohibits its transfer?
No, the first one doesn't prohibit transfer. In fact, it explicitly allows it by stating to order. The second one also allows transfer, but in an implied way. As long as there are no words like non-transferable, both situations mean it's payable to order and can be endorsed and delivered onward. In short, neither statement prohibits transfer. They just describe different ways to establish that right.
So a negotiable instrument is payable to bearer when it is expressed to be so payable.
Exactly. A negotiable instrument is payable to bearer when it states something like pay to bearer or pay to cash. In that case, whoever physically possesses the instrument can receive payment with no endorsement needed.
When they say expressed to be so payable, what do they exactly mean?
When they say expressed to be so payable, they mean the instrument explicitly states it's payable to bearer. For example, it might say pay to bearer or pay to cash. In other words, it's clearly written that anyone holding the instrument, no named person required, can claim
Is the first statement telling us about pay to bearer? When they say a negotiable instrument is payable to order when it is expressed to be so payable, which is the first statement. I mean, from the initial part of the PDF, can you see? Does it mean that it's a pay to bearer?
no. That first statement is not about pay to bear. When they say a negotiable instrument is payable to order if it is expressed to be so payable, they mean it explicitly states something like pay to name or order. This is about order instruments, which require endorsement for transfer. Pay to bearer is a different scenario where anyone holding the instrument can claim the payment.
When they say a negotiable instrument is payable to order, and when you say a negotiable instrument is payable to bearer, what does it mean?
A negoti-
When the only or last endorsement means signing of the instrument. On the instrument is an endorsement in blank. The person who possesses it can demand a payment. For example, a check made payable to specified person and that can check is endorsed by signing on the back of the check by that specified person. Could you please explain this part? Could you please explain the second part from the PDF, which is about a negotiable instrument is payable to bearer when the only or last endorsement means signing off the instrument and so on. There is a statement like that. Could you please explain that?
Apologies for that glitch. I'll explain from the document. The second part states that an instrument is payable to bearer not only when it says so, but also if the last endorsement isn't blank. A blank endorsement is simply the holder's signature with no new payee specified. Once that happens, the instrument effectively becomes like a bearer instrument. Whoever holds it can claim payment.
Now, could you please explain with example as well? And explain me in details.
Certainly. Imagine a check originally says pay to Alice or order. Alice can endorse it. If Alice simply signs the back without naming a new person, that's a blank endorsement. After that, anyone holding the check, like Bob who receives it
When they
next,
say when the
can claim the
only
money.
or last endorsement means signing of the instrument. When the only or last endorsement on the instrument is an endorsement in blank. When they say endorsement in blank, what do they mean?
An endorsement in blank is when the holder simply signs the back of the instrument without naming a new payee. In other words, they don't write pay to someone specific. Once it's endorsed in blank, the instrument effectively becomes like a bearer instrument. Anyone who holds it can present it for payment or further negotiate it.
So the person who possesses it can demand payment. For example, a check made payable to a specified person, and that check is endorsed by signing on the back of the check by a specified person. Now, what is this? I understand the blank part, that when there is a blank check, it's a bearer check, and the one who is holding has the right to claim the money. But when they say, for example, a check made payable to a specified person, and that check is endorsed by signing of the back of the check that by that specified person.
In that scenario, once the specified person simply signs the back without naming a new payee, it becomes a bearer instrument. In other words, whoever holds that check next, no matter who they are, can present it and demand the money. Essentially, the endorsement in blank removes the restriction of a named payee, turning it into a bearer instrument.
For a check made payable to specified person, a check a check payable to specified person, and that check is endorsed by signing on the back of the check by that specified person.
In that case, the specified person has endorsed the check in blank, meaning they've only provided their signature without naming another payee. That endorsement effectively converts the check into a bearer check. Thus, anyone who possesses it afterward can claim payment. In other words, the check is now negotiable by mere delivery, no further endorsement needed.
When I study law, it's very much tough for me to catch the words. Is it worth it to understand each and every word, or should I go for question and answer?
When studying law, it's crucial to grasp the key concepts and principles, but you don't need to agonize over every word. Legal language can be dense, so focus on the meaning of provisions, how they apply, and how they might be tested. Comprehending core ideas and practicing application to questions is more effective than getting stuck on every word. The goal is to be able to explain and apply the law, not just memorize every line.
The essential characteristics of negotiable instruments. Could you find it on the PDF I uploaded?
The essential characteristics of negotiable instruments are as follows. First, they must be in writing. Second, they must be signed. Third, they are freely transferable. Fourth, the holder's title is free from defects. Fifth, they can be transferred multiple times until they are satisfied. Sixth, they contain an unconditional promise or order to pay money. Seventh, the sum, time of payment, and payee must be certain. Eighth, delivery is required for liability. These ensure that negotiable instruments are predictable, reliable, and easily transferable in commerce.
When they say it should be signed, whose sign is required?
The signature required is that of the party creating or issuing the instrument. For a promissory note, it's the maker who signs. For a bill of exchange, the drawer signs. For a check, the drawer, the account holder, signs. That signature is what makes the instrument legally binding and enforceable.
In bills of exchange, drawee also sign, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. In a bill of exchange, the drawer, the person who creates the bill and directs payment, must sign it. The drawee, who is instructed to pay, will accept by signing if required, making them the acceptor. But the drawer's signature is what initiates the instrument and makes it valid.
It is said that it is freely transferable from one person to another. But my question is, in case of order check, it's not possible, isn't it? But why do they add this line?
Even an order check is freely transferable, just with an additional step.
No,
Instead of
order check is not freely transferable.
An order check is indeed transferable, but only through endorsement and delivery. The freely transferable characteristic means that negotiable instruments, including order checks, can be transferred multiple times, just with formalities. For an order
So
check,
is
the
there
payee endorses
a
signing,
check which cannot be
specifying that-
transferable? I mean, I can give it to certain person only, and what is that kind of check called?
The kind of check you're describing is called a restrictive or cross check, often marked AC payee only or not negotiable. In that scenario, the check can only be deposited into the specified payee's account and it cannot be further negotiated or transferred to someone else.
So in case of bearer, anyone holding it can actually withdraw the money. But in case of order check, let's say I have given the check to the John, and if John wants, he give to uh, any other like Mr. A or Mr. B?
Yes, John absolutely can. With an order check, John can endorse it, meaning he signs on the back and specifies a new payee, such as Mr. A or Mr. B. After endorsing it, John delivers the check to that person, and then that person can present it for payment or further endorse it. So yes, order checks allow controlled transfer through endorsement.
Holder's title is free from defects. What do they mean?
It means that when a negotiable instrument is properly negotiated, a bona fide holder in due course receives it free of previous defects or claims. In other words, if someone innocently acquires the instrument for value in good faith and without notice of any problems, they have a clean title.
Give an example where there is a defect.
Imagine someone steals a check or obtains it fraudulently. If they pass it to an
Give
innocent buyer,
easy examples.
someone who